All right, here we go. So it's no secret that we have a brave new world of politics approaching us with the maps that were recently signed by the governor. Republicans have had a tight grip on legislative power here in the state since they were swept into office during President Obama's first midterm election. Not an uncommon loss for a president's first midterm, but that particular loss was a shellacking, in his words. That happened to be a redistricting year, and it also happened to be a point in time where technological advances allowed for more efficient gerrymandering than had been possible in the past. And so Republicans found themselves in a good spot, and they were able to use GIS experts, computer modeling, to gerrymander maps to ensure a Republican legislative majority for some time. Despite many statewide wins by Democrats over the past 13 years, Republicans only grew those majorities in the state legislature, bordering on a supermajority in both chambers. Democrats had pinned their hopes on judicial intervention, which finally arrived with the election of Janet Protasewicz. There were other opportunities to flip the state Supreme Court that were missed. This one was not missed, and the state Supreme Court ruled that the existing legislative maps were unconstitutional and said that they'd select new maps if the legislature and the governor couldn't agree on their own. So with days left in the legislative session, Republicans relented and passed the legislative maps that had been proposed by Governor Evers, which he signed into law as Act 94. Those maps were the most favorable to Republicans of the maps that were under consideration by the court. And so it made sense to compromise on those maps. So this presentation is going to be based on past voting patterns and aren't necessarily predictive. So as I just said, past performance does not guarantee future success. Candidates matter, the top of the ticket matters, campaigns matter, turnout matters, and external events out of anyone's control can have a significant impact, as we saw in 2016. 18 lawmakers have already announced that they're not seeking re-election to their current seats. Some are retiring, others are seeking higher office, and some are merely seeking a different office. As you'll see, this election has the potential to create historic turnover in the legislature. The 18 lawmakers not seeking re-election to their current seat means we'll have at least 18 lawmakers in the next session in seats they didn't occupy during this session. Act 94 created some open seats and paired some lawmakers together into the same district. And the combination of both of those forces creates the potential for 44 new lawmakers in the upcoming session. Republicans currently have 22 out of 33 seats in the Senate. The one vacancy is former Senator Lena Taylor's seat, which she vacated in the past few months to take an appointment to a judgeship. "17 of the 33 Senate seats are not up for re-election until 2026. While the remaining 16 seats are up this November. 17 seats are needed to gain control of the Senate. That's a bare majority of the 33 seats. Republicans need 5 of the 16 seats that are up in this election to maintain control of the Senate, and Democrats need 12 of those seats to gain control. So it's a much steeper hill to climb for Democrats. Of the 16 seats that are up in November, 5 are safe Democratic seats, and 1 is a competitive race that Dems need to protect. That's Brad Pfaff in the 32nd. 6 are safe Republican seats, and the remaining 4 seats are opportunities for Democrats to narrow the Republican majority. That said, Democrats would need to run the table on districts that favor them, win all the competitive races, and win a seat that votes heavily Republican to win control in November. So it's highly unlikely that they would gain control of the Senate in this election. The 4 races to watch are in the 18th, the 30th, 14th, and the 18th Senate districts, and we'll dig into those. Senator Strobel and Senator Knodl represented neighboring districts, but were drawn into the same district by Act 94. The new district is as competitive as it gets based on past election results, with a 51% Republican lean. Due to Senator Knodl opting to not run in the new 8th Senate district, the primary won't be as competitive as it could have been. Strobel will have the incumbent advantage, though only 18% of his constituents have historically been represented by him. He'll need to introduce himself to a lot of new voters, in addition to the 3 assembly members that could mount challenges. A candidate that narrowly lost to Knodl in a special election last year could also be competitive. These 3 districts were comfortably represented by Republicans before Act 94. Senator Markline, who currently represents the 17th, was drawn into the 14th. Senator Ballweg, who currently represents the 14th, was drawn into the 13th, which is represented by Senator Jagler. That means the incumbent for the 14th district cannot run for the seat without moving into the new district. We categorize this as an open seat, though it's one with lots of possibilities. There are 3 assembly members that could mount a challenge for the Senate seat. Even if Senator Ballweg moves into the new 14th Senate district, only 1/3 of the district was formerly represented by her. So like with Senator Strobel, she'd need to introduce herself to lots of new voters. The new district leans Democratic and represents a pickup opportunity for Democrats. These 3 seats were represented by Republicans before Act 94, 2 comfortably and 1 more narrowly. Senator Fain, who currently represents the 18th, was drawn into the new 20th Senate district. That creates an open seat, and Senator Rachel Cabral Guevara, her seat went from competitive to much more comfortable. The new 18th Senate district leans Democratic and has 2 assembly members that could run for the seat. Three Republicans comfortably represent these 3 Green Bay area districts. Let's see, 30th, the 1st, and the 2nd. Demonstrating how the previous maps were carefully crafted. These three senators are all now drawn into the same district. The new 30th Senate district leans Democratic. Senator Coles and Senator Winberg have opted to move and run for the second Senate district, while Senator Jacques has announced a campaign for Congress. That leaves the 30th Senate district open. And this area has voted Democratic in the past three November elections, though narrowly, and presents a good pickup opportunity for Democrats. As I stated earlier, Democrats can narrow the Republican majority, but taking control in November is highly unlikely. They'll need to run good races with good candidates in this election to even have a chance at the Senate majority in 2026. These currently represent the best flip opportunities for Democrats in 2026. The 17th changes from a comfortable GOP seat to one that leans Democratic. The 21st goes from an even more comfortable GOP seat to a toss-up. And the 5th changes from a lean GOP seat to a lean Dem seat. Republicans have close to a supermajority in the Assembly with 64 of the 99 seats. Of the 99 Assembly seats, 46 are safe Republican seats, 41 are safe Democratic seats, and 12 are competitive, again, based on past voting patterns. To gain control, Democrats need to win 9 of these 12 races. Of the 9, 7 lean Democratic, 1 is an even split, and 3 have a slight GOP advantage. That makeup puts Dems in striking distance of winning back the Assembly. Again, they'll need everything to go their way, good candidates, good campaigns, and a strong top of the ticket that gets more Democratic voters to the polls. And that strong top of the ticket isn't looking that strong right now, but it's not November yet. The 30th Assembly District is represented by Representative Zimmerman and becomes very competitive after being a fairly comfortable seat. Representative Moses was drawn into the 92nd Assembly District and only has 60% of the voters, only 60% of the voters were previously represented by him. This is the competitive race that will be tough for Moses if he has a strong Democratic challenger and favorable conditions for Democrats in November. Representative Emerson's seat moved from comfortable to competitive. This is a seat that Democrats need to hold to have a hope of retaking the majority. Hurd will be moving to run in a different district, making Emerson's path easier. Representative Doyle's chances don't change much after Act 94. This is a seat that Dems need to hold, and it is still a toss-up seat. While the 51st is now a lean Democratic seat, Rep. Novak has overperformed statewide Republicans in his district over time, and he'll need to do that again to retain this seat. The 85th is a competitive seat with an incumbent that was drawn into another district that is now a safe GOP seat. So the 85th should be a competitive race with no incumbent advantage. The 88th is another competitive seat with an incumbent that was drawn into another district. This should be another competitive race with no incumbent advantage. The 89th is an open seat with an incumbent that was drawn into a neighboring district. You're seeing a theme here. The new 89th is much more democratic and should be competitive. It's a 16-point swing after redistricting. The 53rd is yet another district with an incumbent that was drawn into another district. The new 53rd leans Democratic. Again, the new 26th is an open seat because the incumbent was drawn into another district. The new district is much more Democratic and now leans Democratic. With lots of nearby incumbents being drawn into other districts, the new 61st is an open seat that leans Democratic. Representative Rodriguez will have her hands full, retaining a seat that is moved from lean GOP to lean Dem in the 21st Assembly District. Again, Dems need to win 9 of the 12 competitive races to retake the majority in the Assembly. Of the 7 most competitive races, 6 have no incumbent advantage, increasing the odds for Democrats to flip those seats. Between retirements and incumbents being redrawn into other districts, we're likely to see historic turnover in the legislature. It's highly unlikely that Dems would retake the Senate this year, though they could get within 1 seat. They'll need a strong showing in November to make their path to the majority easier in the next election. In the Assembly, Democrats can flip the chamber this year if everything goes their way. Good candidates running good races, the top of the ticket that drives high Democratic turnout, and external factors not undermining strong execution. And that is where we find ourselves.
Excellent. Thank you, Adam, very much. Just want to note we had a couple folks come into our meeting. Brenda Gonzalez, thank you, from UW, entered as well. And then Bill Connors, who, Bill, I think you can say your own chat, what you put in the chat. That's congratulations.
Well, I don't know if it's congratulations, but I got a lot of work ahead of me between now and August, running in the primary and the Democratic side in Assembly District 48. Should be interesting.
Well, I think it's definitely congratulations. It doesn't matter where you run or how you run. It's great that you're getting involved in public service. Again, Bill, as you represented Sun Prairie in the city council for years. So I'll say congratulations still. Congratulations.
Yeah, glad to see you getting back in the game, Bill.
Excellent. So questions we have for Adam. I'm going to start off here quickly just on the Madison area. There were some changes to Madison that obviously doesn't change much of what's happening with the balance of who controls the House because it's so Democratic. But certainly we've seen changes in the Madison area with the 80th, the 77th, and a few others. Do you have some updates on how those maps changed in the Madison region?
Yeah, so they haven't changed, that substantially. There are some areas of Madison that included districts that included more of the outlying areas that are now covering more of Madison that make those seats more favorable for retaining Democratic control. But even under the old maps, there was still pretty safe Democratic seats. They've just gotten even more Democratic in some cases. So not expecting a big changes in the Madison area, though with Senator Agard leaving her seat to run for Dane County Executive. Anytime a senator leaves, you've got assembly members that are jockeying for that seat. So we'll see some changes But in terms of how it impacts the overall makeup of the legislature, it shouldn't be significant.
Yeah. Certainly I know several of us who mentioned where we live, the 77th is unrepresentative as well as Representative Stubbs was moved to a different district as well. So some changes will certainly take place. What questions do we have for our friend Adam?
I will
Ron.
start.
Yeah. We'll go Kit, Ron, and then Bill. Kit, Ron, and then Bill.
First of all, Adam, props to you. You got John Maco's. I think his announcement was like maybe yesterday or the day before, and you quickly changed all those slides. Props to you.
I didn't want to give you guys bad information, so we had to update it.
I'm very impressed, very impressed. So my question deals with how you think, just looking at the polling in Wisconsin today, at the top of the ticket, how is that going to impact races if the election were held today? How is the top of the polling that you see currently impacting the legislative makeup?
Yeah, I mean, it makes it harder for Democrats to take control in November. The president is not polling well. He's not polling above 50. The former president is not polling above 50 reliably. So we're in an environment that is uncertain. We'll see what the third party candidates bring to the table. And then we've also got this uninstructed campaign that is currently focused on the primary, but seems like it's going to pivot and focus on the general, and getting folks to not vote for President Biden out of a protest. And so all of those things are not good for drawing in voters that would otherwise not be active in a non-presidential year. So we'll see what that impact is, but it's certainly currently making things more difficult. But things can change between now and November.
Thanks, Kit. Thanks, Adam. Ron, and then Bill.
Thank you very much. I guess I'm curious to have you speak about the competitive nature of the assembly, but that done in terms of what may occur with Biden and Trump. And you see if one of those other individuals may win, will that potentially create more reason why, as an example, if Trump wins, will that create potentially more individuals who come to the assembly? Or the other way around, if Biden happens to win, maybe that'll bring us more Democrats along the assembly. What's your thought about that kind of situation?
Yeah, I hopefully I heard your question right. If I don't answer this the way you're expecting, feel free to repeat parts of it. But if Biden is able to perform well in November, it's going to be because he got more voters out that were inclined to vote for him to show up in November. And if that turns out to be the case, then those voters that turn out to vote for him will likely also vote for other Democrats on the ticket. And those are voters that wouldn't typically participate in a state legislature election, but they decided to show up for the presidential election and said, while I'm here, let me fill out my whole ticket. If Trump ends up with more supporters in November, then you have the opposite effect of folks showing up that are inclined to vote for a Republican. Biden and Trump both have a lot of baggage coming into this election for very different reasons. And if he gets more of his supporters out, then that's going to be good news for Republicans running down ballot.
Thanks, Ron. Was there a follow-up to that, or is that?
Oh, good. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Perfect. Thank you, Ron, very much. Thank you, Adam. Bill.
Adam, we're all asking you about the presidential campaign here rather than the Assembly and Senate. But when I'm going to do the same thing. So you mentioned third-party candidates or people just staying home. I remember, I'm old enough to remember when John Anderson ran for president, and he looked like he was going to draw a major portion of the voters And then as election time, as we got near to November, all of a sudden, those voters went back to their major parties. You know, it's hard to predict in this environment. We have so many people who are turned off by both candidates. But, you know, you think, I know, how would you know? But you're in your crystal ball, Adam. Do you think a lot of people are going to come home to their major parties as November approaches?
I expect that to happen. You know, that is typically what happens. There are some outliers where that hasn't been the case, but in the environment that we're in right now, with both sides feeling like the stakes are so high, there was a poll out last week that looked at fear among voters and the fear that they have of their non-preferred candidate winning the election. And there's a lot of fear on the Democratic side, and fear can be a motivator. It's not. Some would argue it's not the best motivator, and some would argue that it is. But we do see, I think we'll see third-party supporters, for the most part, opt to vote for one of the two major party candidates. But we don't need a lot of third-party voters to change the outcome of the election. You know, we're talking about a 20,000 vote differential. If you can get that many voters, and we have a similar turnout to what we had 4 years ago, that changes the outcome of the election. So elections are always going to be close, statewide elections here in Wisconsin, and it doesn't take much to change the outcome.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Adam. Jason.
So understanding that the top of the ticket is probably what drives turnout in a lot of places, do you know much about how when a district turns from being relatively uncompetitive for many election cycles into being a competitive, maybe even for the first time having two folks even running, how that affects turnout?
Yeah. So, I mean, this still comes down to the campaigns that are run. So let's say you're in a district that had been a reliably Republican district for the past 13 years. And now that district has changed and it's a lean Democratic seat. If you're an engaged voter, you're looking at that and you're even more motivated to vote. But maybe you were going to vote anyway. So who knows? If you weren't an engaged voter, you're probably still not an engaged voter, and you might not even know about those changes, or maybe you know about it, but you haven't really thought about what the impact of that might be. It still comes down to campaigns. So whether it's local groups campaigning and making the case for this being an important election where your vote matters even more than it has in the past, or competitive candidates running good campaigns that are making that same case. If the campaigns are strong and they're getting their message out, then it matters. But if we don't see strong campaigns being run, then the impact of that is going to be less.
Thanks, Jason. Thank you, Adam. More questions for Adam.
I have a quick question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, Tom and then Eve. We'll go Tom and then Eve.
Thank you. Adam, thanks for the presentation. Do you feel that there's been with new maps, a kind of a surge in candidate recruitment at all? Or do you think it's kind of same old, same old?
Yeah. I've heard that there's a lot of excitement around candidate recruitment right now. We've seen a number of Democratic candidates announcing for their elections. You'll see more in the coming weeks. Both parties have aggressive candidate recruitment goals. We've seen a lot of retirements, many that were unexpected, especially on the Democratic side. You'd think that after being in the wilderness for this long, that there'd be more members that were eager to stick around to potentially come into power. But we've seen some unexpected retirements on the Democratic side. We've seen some expected and some unexpected on the Republican side. And so, there's a need for a lot of candidates out there. Both sides are pounding the pavement to get them in. They have high fundraising goals to support a much bigger map than there has been in the past. We're talking, at least 2x of what the prior fundraising goals were.
But we're thankful that Bill decided to run. Thank you, Bill. Yeah,
There you go.
Eve, next question.
Yeah, sorry, my computer and I are not doing well this morning. I wanted to ask we know there are going to be many referenda across the state, cities, school districts. What impact does all these uncertainties of how much turnout there's going to be and who's going to be turning out, what impact will that have on these referenda that'll be on the ballot in November?
Yeah, I think it'll depend, probably on the community and the dynamics in that community, and also when the referendum is happening. So if you take Milwaukee, that referendum isn't in November. It's today. It's today.
Yep.
I lose track of election day because I already voted. But yes, most people are voting today, and that's when Milwaukee voters will be turning out for that referendum. So that won't have a significant impact in Milwaukee, but there may be a referenda on the ballot here in Madison, and that would drive more turnout. There are going to be referenda on the ballot in communities all across the state, and that will have some impact on getting voters to the polls that want to support those referenda. And we're talking school referenda, at least I am, and we'll talk about the two questions that'll be on the ballot in a second.
But there's also going to be city referenda. Certainly Madison is planning one.
Yeah. So we've got school referenda, we've got city and municipality referenda, and then we've got the two questions that are on the ballot. So the local referenda have the potential to bring more voters out to the polls that don't really care about the politics, but they care about their local issues. They care about their school functioning. They care about their local government having the resources that it needs to provide basic services. With the two questions that are on the ballot, we'll see what kind of impact that has. But that's we'll see. And again, that's not a November question. That's a today question. But I think it will drive more turnout. Who it advantages? I think that's going to depend on the community that referenda is in.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eve. Thank you, Adam. More questions. All right, hearing none. Before we send it to Melinda, I mean, we can't not ask, what's your prediction for the Assembly and the Senate? You're welcome, friend. You're welcome. As of today, and in the world of politics, everything could change tomorrow. Well, obviously today's voting day, but it could change a million things over in the next 7 months, excuse me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I am an optimist, but probably more conservative when it comes to making a bet. And in this case, there's no money involved, but I'm still going to be
no money involved.
So, I think we'll see strong gains by Democrats. But like I said in the presentation earlier, they need to have pretty much everything go their way, and there are a lot of things that aren't going their way right now at the national level that don't look like they're pulling in voters in the way that Democrats need. But it's April. The election is in November, and lots of things can change between now and then. But certainly they're going to need conditions to improve between now and November if there's going to be a hope of gaining control of the Assembly.
Thank you for the prediction. Chair Melinda.
I'll add one more comment on that. Regardless of whether there is a shift in who controls a chamber, just a narrowing of the majority changes how things work in the legislature. When you go from a virtual supermajority in both houses, and we were on the verge of a supermajority in both, when you go from that to a slim majority, that changes the prospects for all sorts of legislation. So the expectation is that the size of the majorities will be significantly different in the next session, and that will change the political calculus for members and for the parties for what gets done. And so we're expecting there to be opportunities for legislation in the next session that didn't exist in this section because of the near supermajorities that were had. So it's going to be different. We're going to see progress on issues that have languished. We may not see Democrats take control, but it will still give a lot of hope to people that have seen their issues not improved upon over the last decade.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Adam. We really do appreciate your time today. And obviously, Adam also joined the board of directors of DMI a few months ago. So we're excited to have him as part of our team here as well. So thank you, Adam, and the team at Michael Best Strategies. And as Kit said, thank you for literally the 24-hour change in the slide presentation, which is no easy feat. So thank you. Back to you, Melinda. Back to you.
Thanks again, Adam, and thanks everyone for your questions. If you really love this kind of stuff, there are some opportunities this month to dig in still more. There are a number of Rotarians, I think, present this morning, and our program at Rotary tomorrow at the Park Hotel is Ken Mayers, UW professor, The Unusual State of the Presidential Race. I have no idea what he's talking about, but in all seriousness, if someone would like to come as my guest, please let me know. I think we have to get an RSVP in. I'm not sure by what time today. But
well, yes, today.
Yeah.
And I will say the bonus is that I'm presiding over Rotary.
There you go.
Tomorrow. So either that's a good thing or a bad thing. You can make that decision.
I'm sure that it'll be an entertaining conversation. So that's tomorrow.
I'm heavily scripted.
And then on Wednesday, April 24th, this is Wisconsin Association of Lobbyists. There's kind of a brunch 10 o'clock presentation about the 2024 election map. So different individuals speaking to the same topic. And then on April 25th through WIS Politics is a luncheon with the party chairs of both parties. So if any of those things interest you and you don't otherwise get that information through other channels, let me know and I'll be happy to get that information to anyone. Or I can just send it to you, Jason, if you want it. You probably get those event notices. So lots of opportunities to keep talking about it. I'm sorry, Ron?
Did you mention the WIS Politics event that's happening as well?
Yep, on the 25th. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Just want to make sure I have the right date.
Yeah.
Excellent. And then DMI side, please join us on April 24th. We're not going to be talking about politics. We'll be talking about athletics. It's that and the weather we could all agree on. Go Badgers. So Chris McIntosh from the UW Athletic Department will be with us at the beautiful Edgewater Hotel. It is on a different day, thanks to Melinda. It's on Wednesday, the 24th of April, 7:45 to 9 a.m. at the Edgewater Hotel. And you can attend her wonderful Madison Public Schools Foundation event on the 25th, our normal date as well. So hope you can join us. Also, just check our calendar out. We got plenty of things happening as well. Thank you all for joining us. We know we had a meeting just 5 days ago, and you joined us again here today. Thank you. Both of these are recorded, both Dave Schmedicke's presentation on Thursday of last week and then Adam today. Again, a huge thank you, Adam, and thanks to Bill and Kit and Ron and John and Jason and everybody that joined us, Marty and Tom and Brenda on the team. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We'll see y'all later. Enjoy the rain.